Welcome.
I thank you very much for allowing me to participate in this special order. And I want to congratulate you and all who have impacted the National Defense Authorization Bill we'll be voting on towards the end of the week. You know, these principles of sound budgeting have got to apply to the administration of our government, and that means all facets of our government. We have had leadership out of the White House that have basically said we can have a war and we're going to have it off budget. Don't have to account for it in terms of our efforts toward reaching a balanced budget, our efforts toward reducing the deficit. We'll have it off budget. All it means is our kids are picking up every nickel of this war as it goes straight on the national debt. And that's why I appreciate the principles that were advanced by the Blue Dogs in HRES 97, the Operation Iraqi Freedom Cost Accountability Act, and I applaud you and all who worked so hard to get major portions of it included into the Defense Authorization Act. The four significant provisions of the bill: transparency in how the war funds are being spent. This isn't a black box proposition. The money is appropriated, the money flows. Where does it flow? I believe we have, at the rate of $2 billion per week burn rate, we are entitled to know, and we're entitled to know in much greater detail than we have had before. The Blue Dogs would go so far as to have a Truman Commission looking at war profiteering. If in the depth of World War II, the face down with Hitler, we could recognize that there were inappropriate funds being spent and work to get our handle around them, as Senator Truman led with his committee, certainly the same holds true with the War on Terror and with Operation Iraqi Freedom. It's a book that I commend to your attention, Imperial Life in the Emerald City. Imperial Life in the Emerald City. It's an outstanding inside account of the administration of the Green Zone in the early days after the conflict and into this post-war period in Iraq. It will raise in your mind, as it has raised in mine, any number of deep and troubling questions about how this whole matter has been administered, and that goes to war contracting, and that means we need to take a thorough look at all of that. Part 3 of the HRES 97, running the future funding of this war through the normal appropriations process, a principle now adopted both in the budget and in the Defense Authorization Act, and the fourth essential component of this bill, moving greater Iraqi responsibility for their own policing and security. Now we have a unanimous vote of the Armed Services Committee with the Defense Authorization Bill, and I believe the Blue Dog can be very happy that the principle of funding this war through the normal appropriations process and greater transparency in how the funds are set will be the policy of this House, a policy adopted, I'm happy to say, with bipartisan measures. The essential management goals for this war will have to be established by the Department of Defense, and the Special Inspector General for Iraq Reconstruction will have a much greater say in bringing information on the expenditure of these dollars to this body. There have been efforts, frankly, to hamstring the Inspector General. We make clear in this legislation that the Inspector General's authority goes toward reconstruction funding, regardless of the source or regardless of the fiscal year. We need to expand our efforts to get a handle on how in the world we have spent to date nearly $400 billion and the tab flowing just as fast as ever. I think that this represents an important Blue Dog accomplishment and look forward to voting on the Defense Authorization Bill.